Mario Kart. Everyone's favorite, non-violent 30-year-old franchise. Not many game series have had that sort of longevity, let alone have been able to change, adapt, and refine their core gameplay over those decades to make their current iteration more popular than ever. It's hot. Mario Kart pioneered a whole branch of kart racing games, and its success comes down to its dedication to two things: quality tracks and fun items. We did a video on Mario Kart's track evolution over the years, so now it's time to give the same treatment to its items. Every game in the series has tweaked the item roster a little, and 30 years of little tweaks get you a lot of big changes from the beginning to now. Let's talk about the evolution of items in Mario Kart. What the hell is that? What does it do? Ah, it just takes me to a website. Ooh, look at how tastefully it's organized. Today's sponsor Milnote is a C-tier Mario Kart item and an S-tier organizing tool. You've got a game idea in your head right now, I bet. We all do. Whether it's a side project for fun or something you want to pitch to investors, you've got to get it out of your head so other people can see. Milnote helps get your personal and group projects organized and lets everyone involved collaborate in real time. Milnote lets you make beautiful storyboards and mood boards, notes, inspiration, to-do lists, and is customizable enough to fit the structure of your exact project. They've got built-in templates for any type of project you have, including game design. We use it for organizing design doc videos. Drop in text, images, notes, links, anything you can think of, and Milnote will keep it organized and let you work on all of it together with anyone you want. Its modern drag and drop interface makes it dead simple to use, and very powerful to help keep everyone on your team on the same page, whether it's one person or 50. Best of all, you can sign up for free. Click the link in the description and let Milnote help you take your project from a dream to a plan. Thanks, Milnote. Super Mario Kart is the start, not just for the series, but for kart racers as a genre. Mario Kart isn't a sim, obviously, but it's also not really an arcade racer like Cruisin' USA, Virtua Racing, or San Francisco Rush either. So what separates a kart racer from an arcade racer? Turns out it's items. You saw the video title. Items give racers an edge and sabotage the competition. They add a huge layer of strategy, chaos, replayability, and skill balancing to a genre whose similar side sometimes shies away from in favor of realism, precision, and a high skill ceiling. Items make a kart racer a totally unique branch of the genre, and Super Mario Kart was the first real crack in making a gameplay system like this. So what makes up the foundation of Mario Kart's item system? Super Mario Kart kicks it off with 9 basic items: green and red shells, banana peels, coins, mushrooms, the feather, lightning, the star, and the boo. Lots of the classics, and most of them have stuck around in game after game with their original function intact. Green shells, red shells, and bananas form the bread and butter of the series' common projectiles. Green shells can be fired forward or dropped behind you and ricochet off walls until they collide with an item, or preferably, a racer. You, unfortunately, count as a racer, and so the green shell can backfire on you if it bounces the wrong way. Red shells will home in on the closest racer ahead of you. They're way easier to aim, though they will disappear if they hit anything at all. The homing logic in this game isn't very smart yet, so this game's red shell will just make a beeline for the next racer, even if there's a wall between there and here. It's a great close quarters option, best used on straightaways and gentle turns. The banana is a more defensive-minded weapon that you leave behind for your opponents to slip on. Hitting a banana will spin your card out rather than exploding it like the shells do, which is a less powerful but still effective way to get a close player off of your tail. Pressing up on the D-pad while using a banana will fire it forward instead of leaving it behind. It's very difficult to aim a thrown banana, as you can easily throw it off track, but if you're a real Mode 7 aiming superstar, you can use the banana to bring a leading opponent back to the pack. Just don't slip on it yourself. Mushrooms are very common and very useful. They give you a quick speed boost, which is great in general, but really great for creating your own off-road shortcuts. If you know what you're doing, you can cut seconds off a lap time with just one mushroom. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna find some trouble. The coin is a Grand Prix mode exclusive. Super Mario Kart's coin system lets you gather coins on the track to raise your max speed, to pay off Lakitu for his services, and do a vaguely Sonic Rings adjacent thing where if you get plonked with an item or run into by another racer, you'll lose some coins, but it'll be less bad than getting spun out if you're hit while broke. The coin item just gives you 2 more coins. Simple enough. The feather is very situational. All it does is leap you into the air. You can use it to dodge stuff. Expert Mario Karticians can also use the feather to create the most bonkers shortcuts you can think up. You can leap over any wall or obstacle with a feather. Super Mario Kart's tracks are designed to be very compact, so leaping over one wall can cut a lap in half, if you find the right place to do it. The next 2 are the much rarer and more powerful Star and Lightning. The Star works very similarly to how it does in Mario platformers. It makes you faster, invincible to other objects, lets you drive off-road without losing any speed, lets you destroy obstacles in your way, and blows up anyone you happen to bump into. And the song is fun. Lightning is the only multi-target item in the game, causing anyone not invincible or being picked up by Lakitu to shrink and slow down for a time. Anyone shrunk will get flattened if they're run over by a normal-sized player, which will lose you a ton of time as you drift back down to the track before returning to normal. Unless you're a CPU, in which case you'll just spin out. Computers get all the breaks. More on that later. Both the Lightning and the Star are way more likely to appear if you're stuck in the back of the pack. More on that later too. And the Boo is appropriately the most elusive item in the game. You have to be playing a 2-player mode for it to show up at all, and it'll let you steal their item while turning you both invisible to players and untouchable by items. Very fun. This is the foundation for Mario Kart items. We've got things that make you faster, things to slow down racers ahead of you, things to slow down racers behind you, and things to make you immune to being targeted. No matter the game, every new item winds up falling in at least one of those categories. A new item might mix and match abilities, maybe it does a couple of different things at once, maybe it tweaks the look and behavior a little bit, but those are really the only fundamental categories for Mario Kart items, and that's been true since the beginning. How the CPU gets items, however, that's completely off the wall, broken and crazy in Super Mario Kart. CPUs don't have to do things like run over an item box to get an item. They don't even have to have the item be available for the player to get. There's no rules. Instead of getting items from item boxes, CPU players each have an assigned item that's theirs. They can use their item whenever and wherever they want. DK Jr. can fire off bananas in front of your cart all day. Yoshi can use an egg that acts just like a stationary shell. Koopa can just literally leave behind a shell. Bowser can leave behind a fireball, which acts like a moving, stationary shell. Look, I know those words don't make sense together, but that's what it does. Toad and Peach get a unique poison mushroom that will shrink you if you run into it. Mario and Luigi get unlimited stars. They can just use infinity stars. It's not a speed boosting star, but they still get the rest of the star parts. Oh, and every CPU also gets infinite feathers. Whenever you fire off a shell at a CPU, or if they're about to hit a banana peel, there's a pretty decent chance that they'll perfect dodge by firing off a feather. Don't tell them about the feather shortcuts or you'd never win. There's a reason none of the other games work like this. Can you imagine if Mario Kart 8 had CPUs with infinite stars? Super Mario Kart is basic by modern standards, but sets a very solid foundation that the series built off of, and is still easily playable and fun to this day. This wouldn't be an evolution video without some item change though, and that change starts with Mario Kart 64. Mario Kart 64's tracks are completely different from the original game. They're much bigger, fully 3D, and have tons more alternate paths for players to drive down. Mario Kart 64 removed the coins completely, so say goodbye to the coin item. The feather was playtested in early versions of the game, and found to be way too situational now that the tracks were so much larger, so that's gone too. The game's track shortcuts are more dependent on speed rather than jumping over obstacles. Though if you're creative, you can find a few ways to jump over stuff. The item boxes went from flat tiles on the track surface to 3D boxes you crash into to grab an item. They're spread out in multiple places on the larger tracks, sometimes lined up, sometimes in messy clusters, and sometimes you can find a one-off box tucked away to the side. Psych, that's one of the game's new additions, the fake item box. It's a track hazard that looks just like a normal box, but with an upside down question mark. Hitting it will stop you dead in your tracks. It looks pretty convincing, and clever players can hide one in a group of real item boxes to trick their friends. If it's a normal item box though, you might get one of a few new things. One item is okay, but how about 3 items? Several of the basics get triple upgrades. Triple mushrooms, triple green shells, triple red shells, and quintuple bananas. The triple mushroom is just like the single one, but there's 3 of them. Wow. The shells form a circle around your cart, freeing up your item slot to grab another thing, but also giving you a shield to block incoming shells and other track hazards. And the bananas are in a conga line. The bananas are weird in this game, I don't know. Throwing is still impossible. What if 3 mushrooms aren't enough? Why not infinity mushrooms? The golden mushroom lets you hammer on the Z button and boost as many times as you want for a few seconds. The camera hates it. Then there's the big new item. This one's important. Mario Kart has always had a leader problem. If first place gets out too far ahead of the pack, it can be very hard to reel them back in. Second place gets brought back with shells and stuff, and the gap to first keeps increasing. To combat this, Mario Kart 64 introduced the most important and most controversial item of them all, the blue shell. Technically the spiny shell, but the rest of them have color names, so it's the blue shell. This one is a heat-seeking missile for whoever is in first place. If someone in 7th fires one off, it'll lock onto the track center and zoom towards first place, plowing through anyone in its way. If someone gets one while in first place, well, they've got a self-sabotage option ready to go. Look for these super elusive sideways item boxes. You'll always get a blue shell. Triple shells aren't the only way to play defense in Mario Kart 64. Single shells, bananas, and fake item boxes can be held behind you to let you line up your shot, but also to shield you from incoming attacks. You lose the item, but that's better than getting blown up. Plus, holding an item behind you frees up the item slot to collect another one. If someone's right on your tail, you can also swoop in front and make them run into the item themselves, or just fire a shell backward by holding down before using it. The holding system really helps make bananas more valuable as a defensive tool, and makes green shells more likely to be useful even if you can't aim. The game's sound design has changed too. Now you can hear chirps whenever you hit other drivers with something you used, even if they're way off screen. They even added a little Doppler effect when you drive by. One thing that hasn't changed is the number of unfair advantages CPU drivers get. Mario Kart 64 is notorious for having different rules for human and CPU drivers. Everyone knows about the game's rubber banding that massively boosts the speed of computers behind you, and sometimes the computers ahead of you. Look at this. But they get bonuses with items too. If a CPU hits a shell or a fake item box, they're not knocked around for nearly as long as a human player would be. Blue shells fired at first place computer players seem like they should be great at bringing them back to the pack, but it actually doesn't slow them down all that much. Not like how the blue shell will slow down your friends when it hits them. The way the CPU gains items in this game is also completely nuts. Triclon and Micro 500 did a write-up on exactly how the item system works for computers. You see them hitting the item boxes? Yeah, they don't even get items from that. After every 20 seconds, every CPU gets a chance to be granted an item, all at the same time, with the chance for each item determined by an item drop table that's completely different from the one that human players get. It's mostly going to give the CPU a banana towards the front and mix in some speed boosting mushrooms and stars toward the back, with the occasional fake item box dropped in for flavor. It'll never get any red shells, blue shells, banana bunches, triple or golden mushrooms, but there's a roughly 1 in 4 chance, give or take, that any CPU racer will wind up getting a green shell, and another 1 in 5 chance for trailing racers to get a triple green shell. So what? Well, the CPU doesn't know how to use it. No CPU in this game will ever fire off a shell. The shell will just sit there in the CPU item box and keep them from getting any more items for the rest of the race. Oh, and if you ever get hit by lightning in Grand Prix mode, the computer has a 1% chance of grabbing a lightning, but only if they're in 8th place. You know exactly who to blame. There's your suspect. Mario Kart 64's changes introduce new series staple items, but the game is more important in how it set the ground rules for item play, in defensive behaviors, collection, and how items interact with each other in 3D space. So of course, now that we've established the norms, it's time to throw out half of them and go back to 2D. Mario Kart Super Circuit is a jazzed up take on Super Mario Kart for the Game Boy Advance. Kinda like they took the lessons learned from 64 and shoved them back into the original. Item tiles are gone, but the coins are back. Still no coin item though. The item boxes are more like they are in 64, showing up in a few tidy rows along the track. But the big story is the new items. We've got nothing. There are no new items. And they took out some of the old new items. No fake item boxes, no banana bunch, no golden mushroom, and you better believe they kept out the feather. Instead, the rest of the items changed to look and act way more like they do in 64, with a few tweaks here and there. Dragging items to free up a slot is here to stay. Single red shells can be dropped behind, but they won't move, just like dropping a green shell or a banana. Can you imagine if you could fire a homing red shell backwards? Game breaking. Especially because in Super Circuit, the red shell homing now actually works and can navigate towards its target, around corners even. Throwing a banana forward works better too, now that it doesn't go as far. You can kinda aim it now. Most of the other items just have a graphical update, but the Boo actually got a few good changes. It still steals things, it still makes you invisible, but Super Circuit stole an idea from the best kart racer, Snowboard Kids. The Boo now scares the hell out of whoever gets targeted, slowing them down and lowering their coin count. When you see it laid out like that, it makes way more sense. It's a ghost. It should be scary. This is the first and last time in the series that the Boo will be scary. The CPU racers now actually use items normally, more or less. They can fire off shells now, big upgrade. When you're targeted, you'll see a little shell icon before you get hit, so you can defend yourself. That's nice. Super Circuit is a middle child. Not as raw as Super, not as daring as 64, just a solid middle ground. Strap in though, the fourth one is gonna be crazy. Was Super Circuit's item play too boring for you? Yeah, I know, but now we're shifting in a radical new direction, with an item system so bizarre you'll never see it coming. It's Mario Kart Double Dash. This game's whole deal revolves around the pair of drivers you control. Two drivers mean a few fundamental changes. Now there are 2 item slots, and you even get to switch between the 2. This lets you save strategic items for later, or change to something defensive if you're about to get blasted. Each item is actually physically held by one of the characters, and switching items means swapping drivers. The kart won't change how it handles or anything, but it's still important, and very diegetically extra. Your driver's physically holding stuff isn't just for looks though. If you crash or get hit by a strong item, you can drop your stuff directly onto the track. You can lose some important weapons if you're hit by lightning at the wrong time. If it's something like a banana, it just deploys like you dropped it yourself. If it's something like a star though, someone else is gonna benefit from your misfortune. For tracks like Baby Park and Luigi Circuit, where there isn't a ton of space to spread out, the track gets littered with dropped items and contributes to the total chaos those tracks are known for. If you run into a box, you only get an item if the kart backseat driver doesn't already have one. If you want to hold 2, you've got to swap. Unless you happen to run into the next new thing. With 2 drivers and 2 item slots comes the new double item box. At random, a normal box will sometimes respawn to be a double box, which can make 2 karts fight for position, now that there's a reason to aim for one box over another. If you can't get a double box, you can cobble one together if you're quick about it. The item boxes are laid out on tracks more like they were in Mario Kart 64 with some clusters, so you can hit one, swap positions quickly, and hit a second to get 2 things the long way. This whole system is an interesting way to add a little more technical skill to the process of getting items. The game's changes also include a major overhaul to the game's item roster. Coins, out. Feather, absolutely not. Boo is a driver now, and was elected king. Fake item box, yeah, no one's falling for that one. Lightning, you can't squish people anymore. Mushroom and Star, takes the stuff of whoever you collide with now. Blue Shell, now it's from a paratrooper I guess, and it just flies above everyone straight to first place. And explodes. Items are now split in 2 categories, 9 standard ones, and 10 specials. The standard items are all series staples, available for anyone to get. Bananas, single shells of all colors, basic mushrooms, stars, lightning, and the fake item box. Special items though, remember how Super Mario Kart had items dedicated to specific drivers? Of all things, that's back, but with real items this time. Each racer has a special item that only they can get. Well, them and their Mario twin. Triple shells are now property of the Koopas only. Wario and Waluigi get to introduce everyone to the Bob-omb. It's kinda like if you put explosives inside a banana, and stuck a proximity sensor in there for fun. Seems on brand. Golden mushrooms are for Toad and Toadette. Mario and Luigi get a fireball, which shoots a spread of projectiles in front of them and ricochet around for a bit. Yoshi and Birdo get colored eggs that act like red shells. Once they hit someone, the eggs crack and 3 random items get dropped onto the track. Maybe you'll get that free star. The babies get a chain chomp, the series' first big catch-up item. It'll automatically drag you along the track, plowing through anything in the way, then break off and keep going for a bit. DK and Diddy get a giant banana, which splits into 3 little ones after being hit, because that's how bananas work. Bowser and Son get the Bowser shell, essentially a really big green shell that takes a few hits. Peach and Daisy get a new defensive item, the heart. 2 shielding hearts surround the cart, and will let you catch the next 2 things that you get hit by, so you can use them for yourself. And Petey and King Boo can randomly get any of the special items. The special item system is the first time the series gave a gameplay reason to pick specific characters beyond their weight class. Double Dash isn't only about new additions though. Despite how important it is in the last 2 games, Double Dash takes out your ability to drag items for defense. Blocking homing items requires better timing. Triple shells don't protect you anymore either now that the Koopas learned how to juggle. And it's a lot easier to lose your triple items if you get hit. You do sometimes get to keep one of the 3 though. The level of item chaos in this game is much higher than in the last 3. This is the start of the idea of getting carded, where you're robbed of a victory by getting comboed by items. Not that the earlier games didn't have that, but in this game you will get womboed and comboed. Double Dash is fun, experimental, and modernized a lot of the item play you recognize today, though it's sold pretty terribly compared to the others thanks to it being stuck on the GameCube. Go back and mess around with it. Even if it's a little clunky, it's got a unique charm. Tick-tock, it's time to go back to the handhelds again for Mario Kart DS, the first fully 3D portable game in the series. We're starting to get into a rhythm of the handheld releases being designed as refinements of the more experimental console game released right before. It takes a little bit from everywhere, but it feels like a toned down version of Double Dash in a lot of ways. The limited power of the DS is reflected in the game's much calmer item play. The items are rendered as flat, unanimated sprites, which I don't think ever gelled quite right with the rest of the game's look. We're tossing out the part where characters physically hold items, and we're back to how they worked in 64. But hitting some obstacles or weapons can still cause them to spill onto the track for everyone else to grab and trip over. It's not as hectic as Double Dash though. The item roster had much less turnover in DS. It's pretty standard stuff, with just a few additions and tweaks here and there. We're bringing back the RGB shells, bananas, mushrooms, lightning, star, feather, wait, never mind, and the fake item box. Now deposed from his throne, Boo returns as an item that works just like the Boo from 64. You can actually react to the Boo this time. It can only steal an item while it's in the item slot. There's a short window after it appears on your screen before it steals, so you can deny it if you're quick enough. The Banana Bunch is back, rebranded as the Triple Banana, with only 3 in the conga line. It will block 3 incoming shells now, which is very useful, but if someone runs into the line, they'll probably all disappear. The special items from Double Dash are almost all gone, except the golden mushrooms, triple shells, and bob-ombs, which seem to be gaining more traction as a series staple at this point. The bob-omb can be grabbed between 2nd and 5th place, and still has that timer and explosion from Double Dash, or a proximity sensor that will blow it up when it's near another cart. Red shell homing is now a little driftier. On big turns, it might start to home in from the side, which sometimes makes it skip over all those precious defensive bananas. The lightning now has a staggered effect, where the further ahead you are, the longer the shrink will last. Yet another way to help keep everyone bunched together. Mario Kart DS adds 2 new items. The Blooper, which is bad, and the Bullet Bill. The Bullet Bill is a streamlined take on the Chain Chomp, which was originally back in this game, but scrapped and sort of replaced. It's the ultimate no-brainer catch-up weapon, where the game will autopilot you straight ahead at bullet speed and barrel over anyone in the way. Really, most of the game's item play is sensible tweaks and minor changes, but the DS's second screen does make one fundamental change. There's a lot more info on that thing than you've ever had before. It defaults to a zoomed in mini-map with drivers and their active items shown in real time. The map is detailed enough that you could just play the game by only looking at the bottom screen if you really wanted to. The left side has each character's position and item slot ready, which makes using the boo a little less random and a little more strategic. You can try to time it right to grab that golden mushroom when the odds are in your favor, or at least you can save it if no one has anything good to steal. The second screen makes the fake item boxes even less useful, as each one is clearly marked red on the map. I mean, it was pretty dead obvious by now what ones are the fake item boxes, but sure, let's add one more way to tell. No one's falling for this anymore. The item drop tables are overhauled, with the power items getting way more stuck to the players in the nosebleed section. The lightning, bullet bill, and golden shrooms are handed out like candy back there, and I'll make this feel like one of the more rubber bandy games in the series. Oh, and why not? Let's crank up the blue shell frequency while we're at it. That's fine, right? Oh no. We might need to do something about that. This is where the blue shell discourse starts to reach a tipping point. With no way to avoid it, blue shells can show up right at the end of a race and pull the rug out from under first place. And that's it. Really, there isn't much crazy here. It's not as hectic as Double Dash, and more varied and refined than Super Circuit or 64. It's super popular, and if you love snaking everywhere, it's still pretty popular. But that's not the item's fault. Time for another console entry. Time for... you. Mario Kart Wii is the most divisive game in the series. As much as I love things like the track roster and the addition of bikes, there's a big reason why you'll see such drastically different takes with this one. The item play goes off the rails completely. Double Dash and DS could get too hectic and even unfair sometimes, but if those games started the conversation about getting carded, Mario Kart Wii made it inescapable. First off, the player count went up from 8 to 12. That's 50% more players, which means 50% more competition, and 50% more items shooting off all over the place. The item box works just like it did in DS or 64. No doubles or anything. We're off the DS, so there's no bottom screen, and we don't get to see what everyone's packing anymore. We do have a few quirky additions though. The Double Dash style item warning is back, and so is the backup camera, last seen in Super Mario Kart. The item roster has nearly everything that appeared on the DS, with the functionality more or less the same, without many item-specific tweaks. Squishing players is back, not with lightning though. Believe it or not, the feather missed the boat. The king has returned from exile, long may he reign. Unlike Double Dash, there's just no way to steal items at all in Wii. If we aren't going to change how most of the items work, let's put in some new ones for fun. We've got 3, the Mega Mushroom, the POW Block, and the Thunder Cloud. The Mega Mushroom is like 3/4 of a star, where you get big, can squish anyone, get a speed boost, can go off-road, but you're still vulnerable to some items and obstacles, which can make you lose the effect early. It shows up for players a little further ahead than those who might get a star, so those tweaks feel about right. The POW Block is a nerfed lightning, where middle of the pack drivers can send a POW Block hovering over anyone ahead of them. A little animation plays and will spin everyone out and make them drop their items. You've got some counters though. If you hit the trick button or shake the controller as the effect goes off, you won't spin out as hard and won't lose as much speed. If you're airborne, you can avoid the effect entirely, and there are ramps and air things all over the place in this game. It's a little redundant, but it's not the worst item. The Thundercloud is the worst item. Debuting here and definitely not Mario Kart Arcade GP, this is a hot potato. When you get one, it uses itself. You get a speed boost, all upside. Don't worry about the cloud. If you bump into someone else, they get the cloud. Aw, that's too bad. Oh, whoever has the cloud last gets hit by a single player bolt of lightning. It's a weird one and can lead to some fun chaos, but not being able to decide when to set it off can make it very punishing and annoying to get rid of, especially in online matches where the lag makes it much harder to bump into someone else. Would it shock you to know that none of these new items have come back in any of the future mainline games? Tour doesn't count. With all the extra items and all the new ones meant for middle-of-the-pack players, races devolve into total chaos. Crashing and getting flipped over by items in Wii is much more punishing than in Double Dash and even in DS, where you're losing all of your speed, like what happened in Super Mario Kart and 64. Recovery takes longer, and with all the new players hunting you down with items in tow, you can easily get comboed by multiple items in a row and shoot down the charts. they cranked up how many blue shells there are now too. It's not uncommon to have 5 get used in a single race, and someone's gonna save one for the end. You can try to dodge it by slipping back to second or by using a mushroom at just the right time, but if you can't, you might be looking at 5th place finishes. I did some blue shell math. There's a 5% chance that 6th through 9th place gets a blue shell on any given box in Grand Prix, plus 2.5% for 5th place. If all 5 of those racers grab a box from a cluster, there's roughly a 20% chance at least one of them will get a blue shell. And that's 20% every time you go through some boxes, for the entire race. Even with a cooldown between blue shells, it's way too common. Mario Kart Wii does have a big competitive scene, so it's not impossible to get a handle on the item play, but for casual players, the extreme item frequency can start to make the game feel like a luck box. Like I said, Mario Kart Wii is divisive. If you love to play Mario Kart with a touch of items, it's tough to get into. If you love to play Mario Kart because of the items, well, this is about as good as it can get. But this isn't the end of the line. We need one more refining step before the big finale. Like every other handheld entry, Mario Kart 7's item play takes a step back from the experiments in the most recent console game. We're down to 8 racers again, and that alone calms a lot of the chaos from Wii. Item boxes, the same. Item slots, we aren't going back to doubles, they're also the same. Coins, triumphant return. Now you can grab 10 to get up to max speed. That can be more important than you think in this one. Getting hit with items saps your coin count by 3 and stops you dead in your tracks. Getting back up to speed can be a chore if you're down to just a couple coins. Sometimes getting hit will actually flip you backwards. That can be tricky to deal with. You can't get launched in the air by explosions anymore in 7, so that's a plus. Since we're back on a dual screen handheld, the map system returns from DS, though it's way less detailed. Item boxes, coins, and track obstacles aren't marked anymore, so I wouldn't recommend staring at the bottom screen while driving. I mean, it was never a great idea, but now it's really not. Nintendo made some deep cuts to the item roster for 7. None of the Wii's newcomers are back. The fake item box is gone. Rest in peace. The feather might be gone still, don't quote me on that. There's no Boo, he's been exiled to Luigi's Mansion. Who's in charge of this Boo-less game of Mario Kart? No, I'm not getting ruled over by a blooper just because it's hanging around. The rest of the pack made it though. All the basics, all the triples, all the power items, and the bullet bill made the cut, and they all work mostly like you'd expect. The lightning lets you squish people again, and the blue shell is back to hugging the track like it did in 64. No wings and no safety for those driving in the center lane. I like it better this way. The red shell homing is more predictable, and lost that little bit of driftiness from DS, so it won't skip over your defensive bananas anymore. We've got 3 new, well, 2.5 new items. Inarguably new are the Fire Flower and the Super Leaf. Did you like jamming on Z to fire off the golden mushroom? Now you can do that with some more firepower. The Fire Flower is a rapid fire projectile weapon that shoots up to 10 bouncing fireballs one at a time along the track, causing drivers to spin out on contact. It's kinda like the Mario and Luigi Fireball special from Double Dash, but now for everyone. You can hit lots of people, but be careful. Only 4 fireballs can exist at once, so firing a 5th will make the oldest one disappear. Having only shells for projectiles was getting a little stale, so this is a nice twist. The Super Leaf is a new defensive melee item. Your car gets a tail that you can use to deflect or destroy nearby items, or whack your neighbors a little. It's pretty strong in the right hands, and you can even get it if you're one of the front runners. You can spam the button to get a little bit of extra air while gliding. Both the Super Leaf and the Fire Flower are stuck in your item box until the timer expires, so don't hold on to them for too long. Also new is the very weird Lucky 7, where you get a royal sampler of 7 items rotating around your cart, just like the triple shells do. Red and green shells, a banana, a mushroom, a star, a blooper, and a bob-omb. When you fire one off, it grabs whichever item is closest to the front of your car, and with 7 of them zooming around, it can be very tricky to time things right. Good luck with that green shell. Worse yet, other racers can crash into your spinning buffet and snag the star or mushroom, crash into shells or bananas, or ruin your day by exploding the bob-omb and making you lose everything you had. The Lucky 7 is interesting, but it's very tough to use right. More often, players just fire off everything at once. At least you get a star out of it. Believe it or not, even with all those changes, the level of item chaos is pretty reasonable compared to Wii or even Double Dash. Even online, there can be long stretches of play without tons of items on the field. It's a considerably more fair game. You can still get carded, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing like it was before. That might sound refreshing, or it might sound boring to you. Depends on what you're looking for. I made an opinion poll and it seems like most of you would say boring. Mario Kart 7 isn't a terrible item system. It's fine. It's fine. It's there. Mario Kart 7. It's there. And that takes us to the modern day, Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe. The past decade of Mario Kart has been a series of small improvements not only from the Wii U to the Switch, but also from update to update. Even Deluxe's Booster Course DLC waves have made real adjustments to the game's item play, so don't be surprised if there are a few new tweaks that come out after this video, even before Mario Kart 9 gets released. We're grouping both 8 and 8 Deluxe together, but let's start with Base 8. This was the Wii U's killer app, by far the console's best seller. The vanilla version of 8 is a true successor in the mold of the other console releases. This isn't a refining step like the handhelds, even though they did get the port over a lower screen thanks to the Wii U's gamepad. With this new power, they went in a bold new direction. No longer will we have a zoomed in map in the lower screen. Now we have a horn. Hank! Items and item boxes are thankfully still the same, but Mario Kart 8 makes one subtle but important change that we haven't seen until now. In most of the series, if you could drag an item for defense, it would clear the spot for you to pick up something else. In 8, you can't, and you're gonna hold on to that shell until you set it free. With that change, it's harder for leaders to get several shielding items, and it can make it a little easier to bring them back to the pack and overtake. Not only that, but the coin is back again, and really likes to give itself to the leaders as an item. Having lots of coins is still important, but you can't defend with a coin, so it's pretty common for the lead racer to be defenseless. You don't have to rely on a blue shell or a triple red to slow them down anymore. This defensive change also just reduces the number of items in play in total, which lowers the item chaos in Base 8 by a lot. Despite going back to 12 racers, the game isn't nearly as chaotic as Wii. It's more than 7, but that's probably a good thing anyway. So let's make things a little more chaotic in 8 Deluxe. It brought back the double item box. So are we getting 2 drivers? Nah. While there are 2 item slots again, you can't switch between the 2. 8 Deluxe proves the less items means less chaos theory. If you jump from 8 to Deluxe, you can right away feel the impact of everyone having 2 items. Leaders will probably get a coin and something for defense, which does nerf the rubber banding a little bit. Mario Kart 8's item roster is full of new and tweaked things. Only the Super Leaf didn't make the cut. Goodbye, Super Leaf. The Lucky 7 is now the Crazy 8, which is just a rich man's Lucky 7. Everything else from 7 is back, with some changes. Every triple item now circles the cart like shells do. That means no more conga line, and yes, that means your triple mushrooms are sitting out there in the open. You can crash into someone with a triple mushroom and zip ahead of them. You don't even steal it from them, it's just a free mushroom. The Fire Flower can use more than 4 fireballs at once, so it can be a little spammier. The blooper... Okay, I've skipped it for long enough, I can't avoid talking about it anymore. The Thundercloud isn't the worst item. It's the blooper. It's terrible in DS, it's terrible in Wii, it's terrible in 7, and guess what? It's terrible in 8. If you're unlucky enough to get one, all it does is block the screen of the players ahead of you. It doesn't even block all of the screen, just like a third of it. It's not hard to keep driving without seeing for a few seconds, so it's not all that impactful. And the blooper is only gettable in one of those mid to back of the pack positions where you should be getting some of the best power items in the game. Instead of a star or triple reds, please have garbage. Anyway, the blooper in 8 got a buff. Your opponents now skid around a little. It's also easier than ever to get rid of the ink with a speed boost, a zipper, or diving underwater. Endless trash. It's really just here to ruin my footage. Okay, give me something new. Mario Kart 8 has 3 brand new items. The Boomerang Flower, the Piranha Plant, and the Super Horn. Lots of flowers all of a sudden. The Boomerang Flower is interesting. You throw a boomerang forward or behind 3 times. The first 2 have a medium range and can hit a cart on the way out or the way back. The third toss doesn't come back. The item slot frees up while the boomerang is out on tour, So if you pick up another item while it's away or have one in reserve, the boomerang will put itself in your second item slot. If you don't want it at all anymore, toss it out and pick up a double box, and the boomerang will disappear. The piranha plant is like the third flower we've got now. This puts, guess what, a piranha plant in front of your cart, and automatically chomps at other racers. And it'll even grab coins and items. Every time it lunges, you get a little mini turbo and the timer ticks down a bit faster. You can spam the button to chomp manually and burn through the timer if you want. It's a fairly automatic way to combine a little offense and a little speed. The super horn is for the blue shell haters out there. Effectively replacing the super leaf, it's a melee range defensive item that gives you a one-time shockwave that will blow up anything around you, racers, objects, or otherwise. It's a direct counter to the blue shell, and for players in first, it can be a lifesaver. In theory. In the original 8, it works as advertised. With 8 Deluxe's changes though, it's much tougher to have on hand at the right time. It's not a common thing to get, and saving it for a blue shell might mean you drop it from a lightning, or someone steals it. The Boo is back. He'll steal your stuff like before. 8 Deluxe also adds Boo as a driver. We've got a pretender to the throne situation. The kingdom is in shambles. It says in my notes that there's one more new item, but I don't see it. Let me see. Wait. No. It's been decades. Could it be? The feather. It's back. In battle mode. It's still very situational, but the drought is over. Mario Kart 8 overhauled the item drop tables. The other games have your chance to get something based on what place you're in. 8 changes it to how far away you are from first place. Park everyone at the start, and everyone from second to last can get amazing stuff if the leader is way ahead of the pack. The bullet bills distribution table is a little silly. It's not unheard of to get one in the middle or even near the front. One bullet bill can jump you right to a top position for absolutely free. Mario Kart Wii had a vague item rule customizer, but in 8 there's now a more fine-grained one for private lobbies. You can set up item class modes, like only mushrooms, only shells, only bananas for some reason, frantic mode if you love fun, or as of wave 3 of the booster course, fully custom items if you love a very specific kind of fun. Mario Kart 8 has a fully featured, robust, sensible, and fun item system. New stuff and old. The balance is pretty good. The game is very popular, and you can make it your own experience if you want. Mario Kart 8 has it all. And that's all of Mario Kart. If you're thinking about Mario Kart Arcade GP, GP2, GP VR, GP DX, Mario Kart Tour, or Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, no, those don't exist. There's definitely not dozens of new items in those games. I don't know where this footage is coming from. Ooh, what's that? If you'd like to see us tackle these games that definitely don't exist, let us know, and tell us where we can find a Mario Kart GP cabinet. Let's talk in the comments about your best Mario Kart item stories. What's your favorite item in game? What items would you like to see in Mario Kart 9? Mario Kart is iconic, thanks in no small part to its items shaping how each game feels. The evolution game to game has been subtle, but the changes have added up to create a whole new branch of racing.